Democratic presidential candidates raised a combined $186 million in the third quarter. According to the Federal Election Commission, Senator Bernie Sanders has more than $33 million in the bank. That's $10 million more than Mayor Pete Buttigieg and $8 million more than Senator Elizabeth Warren.
So according to reporting by The Hill, both Warren and Sanders received 60% of their money from small donors. Mayor Pete got a little less than half from small donors. Joining us to discuss these numbers and what they mean for the campaign is Hill reporter Max Greenwood, friend of the show, our colleague here. Great to see you, sir.
How are you doing, Max?
Thanks for having me.
So the top end, the Warren and Sanders numbers are interesting in and of themselves, but Biden's numbers, his very poor showing here, also very interesting. I mean, what does that say about the state of his campaign, and what does it say about the what does it mean for the campaign that he seems to have such a lack of grassroots energy and support?
You know, Joe Biden has been running kind of an old-fashioned campaign.
Yeah.
He's been going to, multiple fundraisers a week. He's flying to LA, he's flying to New York, these traditional fundraising hubs. And listen, that's a way to do it, and that's a way to do it in the past. But what we've seen in the past few years is, there's a big emphasis on this grassroots fundraising. These small online donors giving $20, $30, a week, a month. They're recurring donors, and that's a huge advantage for candidates like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, because these are people that can give again and again and again, and it gives you a really steady flow of cash into your campaign.
It does, and that's the thing is, traditional, it's not working here, right? I mean, that's the issue. I mean, he's got, only $9 million cash on hand. Max, I know you've been digging through some of these reports. How much money has he spent on private planes?
So Joe Biden has spent about $925,000, just under $1 million on private planes in the past 3 months. And that's, just for context, about twice as much as the runner-up, which is Pete Buttigieg at about $450 million or so. So Biden is, by far leading the pack on that front.
That's an easy way to burn cash. I mean, fly commercial, right?
So you kind of crunch the numbers and you realize that $1 in every $20 that his campaign spent was on private flights.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and if you're a donor, you're looking at that, you're none too happy.
What are you doing?
Right. Well, but that's the other problem with the old model is part of why he and Buttigieg are spending so much money on private planes. So they got to fly all around the country to go to these high-dollar fundraising events, which is another advantage for Sanders and Warren, who not only don't do that, but aren't going to do that, aren't willing to do that.
Sure, and I will clarify, both Warren and Sanders spent money on private flights, and significantly more so than they did the last quarter. So I think for Bernie Sanders, it was about $300,000 this quarter. And to an extent, that makes sense. I mean, we're getting closer.
Sometimes it's about shuttling in between destinations.
Yeah,
so
Iowa to New Hampshire, whatever.
Right.
Well, exactly. And if you think about it in terms of, I need to be in Carroll, Iowa. Pretty remote area. It's a couple hours to Des Moines. So it's a lot easier to charter a flight in those cases, so you can get to where you need to be. And we're going to see more of that as the caucuses get closer. But I think for Biden, it really shows how much he's spending just to get to these fundraisers.
Well, it stands out, especially in comparison to how little money he's raising.
Absolutely. So what else did we learn within the expense reports, Max? Anything else that's stuck out to you?
So there's a really big divide here on, the rate at which these candidates are burning through money. So about 2/3 of these candidates are spending money at a faster rate than they're taking it in. Biden is in that camp. He spent about 110% of what he brought in.
Wow.
Klobuchar, I think, is around 164, 165% of what she brought in. So that's kind of an alarming sign this early on. We'll see if they can start to pick up the fundraising pace and fund their operations appropriately, but that is a red flag.
Yeah, she's got the highest burn rate in the race. I'm looking at the data here. Next up, Tim Ryan at 150%, Beto O'Rourke 141, Kamala 123, and Cory Booker 118. So that's not good numbers. We were also talking a little offline about this Act Blue data. That's the name fundraiser for all of these different campaigns, but they have basically released a new breakdown showing by by occupation.
Right.
What stuck out to you in those numbers? I think they're absolutely fascinating.
Pretty interesting.
They are absolutely fascinating because you get a really good look at which people and which professions are giving to which candidates. So for Bernie Sanders, I think it's really notable. Some of his biggest donors on Act Blue are truck drivers and forklift drivers, or waiters and waitresses. I was surprised that he got about 21% of police officers that were donating through Act Blue.
Blue collar, right? That's what Chris was
Absolutely.
saying. Yeah.
And it says a lot about each candidate. Elizabeth Warren, kind of the nerdy, wonky candidate, and she's very proud of that. Her biggest donors were librarians.
So perfect. I mean, it is funny when you dig through. It says so much about their coalition. Sanders he's teachers, he's servers, he's cashiers, he's truck drivers, police officers. Warren's like researchers, economists, professors, librarians, and then
chief executives to Buttigieg
and Biden, and basically the other candidates who are doing the high dollar fundraising. It's CEOs, it's presidents of companies, et cetera, et cetera.
It's
so
lawyers,
it just
doctors, the traditional.
It says the traditional sort of donor base. It says so much about who their pitches are really landing with, because these are their most passionate. If you are willing to, especially if you're like a low wage worker and you're willing to chip in your dollars to a candidate, but even if you're a middle class or upper middle class person, like it's unusual to give money to a candidate. So these are the most committed, most excited supporters. It's so revealing who is going where.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, not a lot of people, at least historically, have been willing to say, let me take my hard-earned money and give it to a candidate that has millions of dollars already. But I think with candidates like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, you do see this grassroots working class support, particularly with Sanders. In Act Blue fundraising, nobody outmatches the guy.
Yeah, and it's Andrew Yang too. You basically can slide your finger down the value chain, basically like from the lowest income down to the highest income, and the things that pop out, Sanders and Yang, they're on both sides of the chart, and it's the moment you start getting to the higher dollars, the money just completely drops off in who the donor base is. And Crystal's right. I mean, these are the most excited people. It means a lot to donate money to somebody, right? I mean, think about that. You got to take out your credit card.
You're waiting tables for a living. Like that money is hard earned.
It's very hard earned.
One of the lowest paid professions in the country, and for them to be giving to candidates like Yang and Sanders, especially, I mean, Yang, brand newcomer to the scene.
It's a big deal.
I just think it's a remarkable thing.
It really is. And listen, there is this idea that money is a proxy for who's going to win the nomination, and that's not necessarily true. If you look at Donald Trump in 2016, Hillary Clinton outraised him. But what's interesting about the grassroots donors is you can see, how many people are excited. It's not so much the top line number, how much he raised, so much as it is how many people are giving and who those people are and where they're from, what they do. That says a lot more about who their coalitions are and what their political support actually looks like.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Max, thanks so much for digging into these numbers for us. Appreciate it. Coming up, Senator Elizabeth Warren finally is going to explain how she will fund Medicare for all.
Meanwhile, Sanders' 2020 campaign co-chair, Nina Turner, she does not hold back about support for candidates who she calls, quote, copies of Senator Sanders. Team Rising shares all their thoughts on this next.